Hello and welcome back to another video on the channel. The World Cup, of course, started yesterday evening with two games, one on at 8 o'clock and then one at about 3 o'clock in the morning. So, which is very hard for us Irish viewers to be watching it. But what I'm going to try and do for every day of the World Cup, it might be very hard to stay consistent in this, but I'm going to try my very best, is to go through a very small kind of review video on every game that we see each day of the 2026 World Cup. So without further ado, here is the World Cup recap. So first up, we had Mexico against South Africa, which kicked off the 2026 World Cup. Of course, Mexico being one of the hosts of the tournament. And probably the main thing to take out of the game was Raul Jiménez playing in his fourth World Cup tournament for Mexico and only scoring his first ever yesterday evening against South Africa. I think everything that he's been through, a fractured skull, which nearly kept him out of the game for the rest of his career and nearly cost him his life as well, never even mind the game. And nearly cost him his life, but to come back from it, show his resiliency and get his first ever World Cup goal was massive as well. So that was probably the story of the first two games of the World Cup. South Africa then played in their first World Cup game yesterday evening for the first time in 16 years since they hosted the 2010 World Cup. And I think it's fair to say that any Shabalaba magic is well and truly gone for South Africa. There were two red cards for South Africa, and please excuse me if I butcher the pronunciation of this name. Svefelo Sithole was the first man to be sent off for South Africa, which I think if I was ever to hear a name which really summed up the South African performance yesterday evening, it could not have come in a better way than that one. Mexico also received a red card for what was deemed to be a goal-scoring opportunity on South Africa late on in the game. He was fairly out close to the right wing, but I could somewhat understand it because if he squared it across, there was, I think, maybe one or two South Africans in the area who could have slotted it home. So I could understand the red card in a sense. It wasn't the most skillful game of the World Cup that you're more than likely going to see, I presume, in this World Cup of 2026, but it definitely showed the entertainment value that the World Cup brings every 4 years when it comes around. Then, of course, the second game was at 3 o'clock in the morning between South Korea and Czechia. Of course, that would have been Ireland's opening game of the World Cup had they qualified, which is kind of disappointing to see as well. South Korea were definitely the better team of the game. Czechia's goal came totally against the run of play, and South Korea were only about behind for, I'd say, about 8 minutes by the time they equalised, and then they got the winner 10 minutes from time. My star performance of the game definitely, I think, goes to South Korean goalkeeper Seung-Gyu Kim. He made two unbelievable saves in the dying moments of the game to make sure that 3 points did go to South Korea. So I think, look, they were definitely the better team overall. I think Heung-min Son was obviously brilliant as well, driving forward, which is something that we haven't been able to see, obviously, in the Premier League over the last year, seeing as he is now in the MLS. But seeing him play on the world stage is great as well. He still got it, in fairness. He was doing very well going towards the Czechia players and creating space and creating chances for his teammates. One of the things from that game which was slightly disappointing was the fact that there was a lot of empty seats throughout the game. Now, I suppose it's probably due to the fact as well, the ticket prices and things like that, but I could nearly guarantee that had Ireland qualified for the World Cup, we would not have seen as many empty seats in that 3 a.m. kickoff Irish time. And look, it's very hard to stay up for these late games, and I'm not going to lie to you, I only saw a very, very small portion of the game. But had Ireland been there, of course, I can guarantee you the country would have been at a standstill in the middle of the night. First up then this evening, the next host nation, Canada, play Bosnia and Herzegovina at 8 o'clock this evening on Friday evening. And then we have the other host and the main host, I suppose you could say, USA taking on Paraguay at 2 a.m. Slightly bit more of a doable time to watch a game, especially when it goes into Saturday morning. But look, hopefully we have two more brilliant games in store for the World Cup. As I said, I'm going to try and keep as consistent as I can with these videos every day, talking about each of the World Cup games that we see on our television screens. But hopefully until tomorrow and the next recap, I'll talk to you later.
Bye.